Hello everyone and welcome to the walkthrough video for the 2024-25 free application for federal student aid, commonly known as FAFSA. I'm Dylan Cafferty, the FAFSA State Coordinator with the Utah System of Higher Education. This video is being produced prior to the official release of the 2024-25 FAFSA. Please be aware that several items covered in this walkthrough may undergo changes before the new FAFSA form is released. The first step you'll need to take is creating an account with federal student aid known as the FSA ID. This functions as your username and password for accessing the FAFSA form and other resources on studentaid.gov. You can navigate to the link displayed on screen or simply search FSA ID in your browser search bar. It should be the first thing that pops up on Google. The initial step is locating the Get Started button, which is where we'll begin. If you prefer to complete this process in Spanish, you can switch the language settings located in the upper right-hand corner. Additionally, on our channel, we'll soon have a FAFSA walkthrough video available in Spanish for reference. Now, whose information is needed on the FAFSA and who should create an FSA ID? Firstly, understanding who qualifies as a contributor on the FAFSA is essential. Contributors are anyone who may be required to provide information on a student's FAFSA form. This typically involves the student themselves, their spouse if applicable, or for dependent students, their parents. Let's clarify who needs to create an FSA ID. First, any student seeking financial aid or assistance for college must create one. Second, biological or adopted parents of dependent students, regardless of whether they have a Social Security number, may need an FSA ID. In cases of divorce or separation, information is required only from the parent who has provided the most financial support to the student in the past year. If the parent is remarried, the step-parent's information and potentially their FSA ID may be necessary. Third, for married students, the spouse's information and potentially their FSA ID may be necessary as well. Now, who shouldn't create an FSA ID? Firstly, parents who already have an FSA ID should not create a new one. Since each ID is linked to a Social Security number, creating a duplicate is not possible. If you've lost access to your username and password, contact the Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-433-3243 for assistance. Secondly, students without a Social Security number cannot file the FAFSA and therefore do not need an FSA ID. We recommend for these students to consult their high school counselor or college academic advisor or financial aid office for alternative ways to fund their education, such as exploring scholarship opportunities or other financial aid options specific to their state or scholarship availability. Furthermore, grandparents, foster parents, and legal guardians should not create an FSA ID. Only biological or adoptive parents are required to do so. Additionally, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and similar relatives do not need to create an FSA ID. Again, from federal student aid, a contributor is considered anyone such as the student's spouse, biological or adoptive parents, or the parent's spouse, which could be step-parents, in situations of remarriage. If you're a student unsure about whether you need parental information, we recommend reviewing the following questions on screen to determine independence. If you, as the student, can answer yes to any of these questions, you will not need parental FSA IDs or parent information on the FAFSA. Please pause the video to review these questions. These questions will be reviewed in the Personal Circumstances section of the student's FAFSA later in this video. If you answer yes to any of these questions, you might be considered independent and won't need to provide parental information on the FAFSA. However, if you were unable to answer yes to any of these questions, you're considered a dependent student and will require parental information on the FAFSA. For dependent students, which parent needs an FSA ID to provide consent and sign your FAFSA form? To assist you, we have a flowchart available. Please pause the video to review the flowchart and determine who your contributing parent or parents are. These questions will be revisited in the Personal Circumstances section of the student's FAFSA later in this video. By now, you should have an idea of who will need an FSA ID. Let's resume the process of creating the FSA ID. First, you'll be asked to provide personal information. Please fill this out according by reference to your Social Security or birth certificate documents and double check everything as accuracy matters during this initial setup or you will have complications later in the FAFSA. An update not currently seen on screen is the option to complete the FSA ID without a Social Security number. There will be a checkbox at the bottom labeled, I don't have a Social Security number. If you are a parent or spouse without a Social Security number of a student with a Social Security number, or if you are a student from a freely associated state, you should check this box. Remember, we won't be using individual taxpayer identification numbers, or ITINs. After checking this box, a warning will appear. This warning is specifically for parents or spouses of students applying for aid who do not have a Social Security number or are citizens of freely associated states. Next, you'll be promoted to create your username and password for your account. Please write down and securely store this information because you'll need this information annually when applying for aid through the FAFSA, which needs to be filled out every year. Now, let's address your permanent residence. For users without a Social Security number, please ensure you put your mailing address here. This address will be essential when accessing your student's FAFSA form. Beneath the address section, you'll provide your mobile phone number. This is highly recommended for enabling two-step verification, streamlining your login process. Each time you access the website, a verification code sent via email, phone, or authenticator app will be required. You also have the option to select your preferred language. Next, complete your challenge questions. We suggest jotting down your answers and storing them securely. These questions serve the purpose of assisting you in logging in case you forget your username or password. Then, you will want to confirm and verify your information so far and click Continue. Ensure you verify your two-step verification methods since they are used each time you access studentaid.gov. Choose your preferred method and follow the prompts to receive and input the verification code. It's important to note that the website has an invisible timer during account creation. If you remain inactive for too long, the site will reset, requiring you to start the process from the beginning. Similarly, refreshing the page can prompt the same result. There's a verification process for your email or phone number, and we strongly recommend completing both verifications. Additionally, you have the option to use an authenticator app, which is considered one of the most secure methods. It's important to note that having an email on your account is mandatory. You need to verify this email, which should be a non-school related address intended for long-term use as a student. If you or your parents don't have an email, you'll need to create one, and you cannot use the same one for both your account and your parents' account. Please forgive the formatting of the following screenshots. These aren't accessible without actually creating an account. After verifying, you'll move forward and it will give you a backup code. Please save this backup code because it will be used once you log into your account if you forget your username, password, or get locked out. For users without a Social Security number, after completing the two-step verification and receiving your backup code, you'll proceed to answer knowledge-based identification questions. These multiple-choice questions, generated automatically by TransUnion through credit bureaus, aim to confirm your identity by asking personal details. It's crucial to answer every question accurately to verify your identity. For users who successfully pass the identity verification questions, their identity will be processed immediately. This allows the parent to transfer tax information onto the FAFSA instantly, eliminating the typical 1 to 3 business days waiting period for identity verification processing. Now, what happens if you don't pass the identity verification questions? In such a scenario, you'll need to contact the Federal Student Aid Information Center to confirm your identity. However, the specifics of this process might still be somewhat unclear at the time of the creation of this video. If you require assistance during this procedure, consider reaching out to your high school counselor, college academic advisor, or your college's financial aid office. To initiate this process, contact the Federal Student Aid Information Center at 1-800-433-3243, where a customer service representative will assist you. They'll locate your account and start the identity verification process. You'll receive an email along with a case number, followed by instructions on how to provide the necessary documentation to verify your identity. Once you've submitted the required documents, it may take 1 to 3 days for processing. Subsequently, you'll receive an email confirming the successful verification of your identity. The documents necessary to confirm your identity are displayed on screen. Please note that these documents may change, so it is essential to follow the instructions provided by your federal student aid representative. Just a reminder, this process is specifically for parents who are creating an FSA ID without a Social Security number. Now, for all users who have completed their FSA ID, what comes next? It's important to remember that upon creating an account, there's a processing period of 1 to 3 business days to confirm your identity. This step is crucial for transferring your tax information from the IRS. Once your identity is confirmed within this time frame, the tax-related questions on your FAFSA will automatically retrieve information from the IRS. If you proceed without waiting for your identity to be processed, you'll need to manually provide answers to those tax-related questions on your FAFSA using your 2022 tax forms. All right, let's delve into step 2, completing the FAFSA as a student. As you navigate through the FAFSA form, remember there are several pathways or options available for you to follow. The first option, seen in blue, involves starting as the student and completing the FAFSA as a dependent student. In this pathway, while you are completing your portion of the FAFSA, you'll need to invite your parents to access the form. Then you will complete your portion and sign your FAFSA. Then, your parents will need to log in, fill out their portion of the FAFSA, and sign the form as well. Alternatively, parents of dependent students can start the FAFSA form, as seen in the yellow pathway. They will log in and complete most of the student section on behalf of their student, then proceed to fill out their own portion and sign the FAFSA form. Subsequently, they'll need to invite the student to access the form. Then their student will log in, finish their section, and sign and submit their part of the FAFSA. If the student is an independent student, they'll only need to log in, complete their section of the FAFSA, and proceed to sign and submit the form. In this walkthrough, I'll be focusing on the process of starting as a dependent student and inviting parents into the FAFSA. If you're following a different pathway, rest assured that the information remains about the same. The only difference lies in the order in which you'll complete certain questions and sections. Once logged in, access the FAFSA page by navigating to the FAFSA tab at the top or by visiting fafsa.gov. It's important to note that the 2024-25 FAFSA form is specifically to apply for aid during the fall and spring semesters of the 24-25 school year. If you need to apply for aid before these periods, such as in spring of 2024 or summer of 2024, you might need to complete the 2023-24 FAFSA in addition to the 2024-25 FAFSA. Also, remember that the FAFSA must be completed annually to secure aid each consecutive year. As we're following the pathway of a dependent student starting as the student, let's begin our FAFSA form. In our example, our student's name is Rhea. At this stage, we determine who will be completing the FAFSA, either the student or the parent. Remember, access to the FAFSA requires logging in with a username and password. At the start, the FAFSA offers a 4-step onboarding series to review and prepare for completing the form. We recommend taking the time to review each step. Once past the onboarding, your FAFSA will import information from your FSA ID. Review the details, and if any errors are spotted, you'll need to return to your account to make those changes because you'll be unable to edit any of these items on the FAFSA form, except for your permanent address. The FAFSA will ask about the student's state of legal residence. In Utah, legal residency is established after residing in the state for 12 consecutive months. For instance, if the student moved to Utah in January of 2012, the date to insert would be January 2013. If the student was born in the state, most likely they can just put the month and year they were born. Establishing residency will differ between each state. Consent is required by all contributors to successfully transfer information from the IRS onto the FAFSA form, which is called the Direct Data Exchange. Consent is also necessary to qualify for any financial aid derived from the FAFSA. Please note that this section contains legal terminology. We strongly advise reading through it and consulting the frequently asked questions at the bottom for further clarification. Now, moving on from providing consent, let's delve into the specific sections of the FAFSA form. The first section is the Personal Circumstances section, where we determine the student's dependency status. Dependent students are required to provide information about their parents on the FAFSA form. Independent students will not need parental information. Additionally, in this section, we will determine which parents are required to complete their portion of the student's FAFSA, applicable only to dependent students. While the FAFSA doesn't directly ask for your age, individuals age 24 or older as of January of 2024 are considered independent. The following questions will help determine your dependency status. For example, students who are married or remarried are considered independent. However, in our example today, we are focusing on a single student. Regarding college or career school plans, high school students should select first-year freshmen regardless of concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, advanced placement, international baccalaureate, or any other college credit courses. For non-high school students, select the most applicable option. It's important to note that students pursuing master's, doctorate, or post-bachelor programs may not qualify for Pell Grants, as these grants are specifically for those pursuing their first bachelor's degree. Choosing a master's or doctoral program or answering yes to already obtaining a bachelor's degree might categorize you as an independent student. The following question will delve into personal circumstances determining independence. Take a moment to pause the video and review these items to determine your status. If none of these apply, select none of these apply. Homelessness is another circumstance that qualifies as independence. This question asks, at any time on or after July 1st of 2023, was the student unaccompanied and either homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Keep in mind, being unaccompanied and self-supporting alone does not meet this criterion. The student must be homeless or at risk of being homeless. The form will then ask about any unusual circumstances preventing contact with parents or posing a risk to the student if they reach out to their parents. The FAFSA provides examples for guidance in this section. Please take a moment to review these examples. After completing these questions, the FAFSA will provide your status as either a dependent student or an independent student. If you encounter a provisionally independent student status, it's crucial to follow up with your college to confirm your circumstances. In our current scenario, we're completing the form as a dependent student, which means we are required to provide parental information on the student's FAFSA form. For dependent students, there's an additional question regarding applying for a direct unsubsidized loan. This situation arises when the student's parents are unwilling to provide required information on the FAFSA. In such cases, the student may only qualify for a direct unsubsidized student loan. If this applies to you, select yes. However, in most cases, you'll likely select no to pursue all aid opportunities and provide parental information. In our example today, our student has access to their parents' information and will be utilizing it on the FAFSA. For dependent students, the FAFSA will ask about your parent situation, referred to as the parent wizard. The first question determines if the parents are married. If yes, the information about both parents is required. If not, it asks if the parents are unmarried and living together. A yes response requires information about both parents, while a no indicates divorced or separated parents. If your parents are divorced or separated, the parent providing the most financial support in the past 12 months is the one required to provide information on the FAFSA. If both parents provided equal support or did not financially support you at all, refer to the parent with the greater income or assets. Once you have determined who is the contributing parent, the next question addresses whether the contributing parent has remarried. If so, information about both the contributing parent and the step-parent is required. Otherwise, only information about the contributing parent is needed. In our example today, I'll proceed assuming the contributing parent has remarried. It's mandatory to invite your contributing parent to your FAFSA form. In households with two parents, at least one parent's information must be provided to move forward. Alternatively, if you start the FAFSA as the parent, not the student, the process requires inviting the student in the same manner. Ensure the inserted information matches exactly with your parent's FSA ID. Any differences will prevent your parent from accessing your FAFSA form. Double check this information with your parents before you proceed. If your parents encounter login issues due to an error, they'll be unable to access your FAFSA until you, as the student, log into your FAFSA and edit their invitation to match your parents' FSA ID information. Now let's dive into the student demographics section. Initially, it asks about the student's gender, race, and ethnicity. Note that these responses don't impact your eligibility for aid, and I'll have an option to select as prefer not to answer. Next, the FAFSA will ask about the student's citizenship, categorized into three groups. For students who are U.S. citizens or nationals, you are required to have a Social Security number to complete the FAFSA. Eligible non-citizens need to provide their A number and also require a Social Security number to complete the FAFSA. If you are unsure if you qualify as an eligible non-citizen, we recommend searching eligible non-citizen FAFSA in a search engine to find more information. Look up the link that is from studentaid.gov. On this webpage, you can determine if you fall into the category of an eligible non-citizen and check if you qualify for aid from the FAFSA. This page will outline the specific situations and required paperwork to establish eligibility for aid. Following the yellow box on this webpage, it will detail the situations where students might not be eligible for aid from the FAFSA and could be unable to complete the FAFSA form. If you're ineligible for aid from the FAFSA, the form will halt at a certain point, preventing further progress. In such cases, I recommend connecting with your college to explore available resources outside of the FAFSA or alternative FAFSA options for aid or scholarships. In our example, we'll click the U.S. citizen or national. The following question will ask about your parents' education status, specifically whether either of them attended or completed college. Next, it will ask if your parent was killed in the line of duty while they were either serving on active duty as a member of the armed forces on or after the events of 9/11, or while performing official duties as a public safety officer. Following this, it will ask about your high school completion status. Choose the most applicable answer. In our example, the student will be graduating with a high school diploma. Then the FAFSA will ask about the high school you are graduating from or have graduated from. Search for your high school and select the correct option. If your school isn't listed, manually input its name, city, and state. Double check that your school information is correct and then move forward. Now, onto the financial section of the FAFSA. Please note that this video was recorded before the release of the 2024-25 FAFSA, so the information presented might not reflect the updated FAFSA. The following slides may not be current as they are subject to change with the new FAFSA release. Here are some unofficial possible income tax questions. These are for students unable to automatically transfer their tax information and need to manually input answers using their 2022 tax forms. Please pause your screen to review these questions, or if you are working on the FAFSA, please review the actual questions asked. I will provide possible questions for both student and parents. To familiarize yourself with the tax documents required, please review the following screenshots. Some of the tax return information that isn't automatically transferred over are as follows: IRA rollovers into another IRA or qualified plan, pension rollovers into an IRA or other plans, reporting college grants, scholarships, or AmeriCorps benefits as income to the IRS. This is optional and not for first-time applicants. And reporting foreign earned income exclusion, which is money earned in a foreign country that wasn't taxed. For students' assets, report current amounts as of the day you are completing the FAFSA. The question asks, as of today, what is the total cash, savings, and checking accounts? We won't include any financial aid provided to the student. You will add your different amounts together for a total number and insert that here. Next, calculate the total net worth of your investments, including real estate. However, don't include the net worth of the student's primary residence, the student's vehicles, or any retirement investments. This is the same for the parents. Investments required to report include assets such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, 529 education savings accounts, secondary homes or real estate, and cryptocurrencies and any other investments. To determine net worth, subtract any debts owed against each investment. For example, if the student owns a secondary home worth $300,000 with a $200,000 mortgage, the net worth would be $100,000. This would be more likely reported on the parent's assets than it would be on the student's. This mainly depends on who is the owner of the account. So if the parents are the owners, we will put this on the parent assets section. Additionally, on the parents' assets, if the parents own a 529 education savings account for their children, we only have to report the amount for the student who is completing the FAFSA and no other children if the parent has multiple children. Now, if someone other than the parent owns the 529 account and the student is the beneficiary, we do not have to report that 529 on the FAFSA. This would be for situations of grandparents, aunts, uncles, or others who would be the owner of the account and the student is the beneficiary. Similarly, for small businesses or for-profit agricultural operations, both need to be reported on the FAFSA. Remember, these assets refer specifically to the student. Similar questions will be asked to the parents' assets later in the form. I want to take a second to spotlight Utah's official 529 educational savings plan, My 529. My 529 has been helping families across the United States invest for higher education for more than 25 years. My 529 funds may be used for qualified higher education expenses, which also include K-12 tuition expenses, qualified education loan repayments, and registered apprenticeships. Learn more at my529.org. Moving to the next section, you will select all the colleges where you want to send your FAFSA information. Search by state, city, or college name to add up to a maximum of 20 colleges. It's wise to list all potential options to avoid returning later and adding them then. Finally, you will review all the information you have inserted so far on the FAFSA. Each section has a drop-down and shows you both the questions and answers. If you need to edit anything, click on the question to quick link you to that portion of the FAFSA. It will also show your contributors that have been invited to your FAFSA form. It shows the date they were invited, and there's a dynamic status bar that updates to what your parents have accomplished so far, which you can review anytime on your FAFSA submission summary after submitting the FAFSA. Then you're going to sign your FAFSA. We recommend reviewing this information before submitting. After doing so, you will check the signature box and click Sign. After clicking Sign, your FAFSA will give you the Congratulations screen, which will say that your FAFSA is almost there, and that we are just waiting for your parents to now complete their portion of the FAFSA before it is submitted. Okay, let's dive into Step 3, completing the FAFSA form as a contributing parent. Once the parent receives the FAFSA invitation email, it will look similar to this. The parent will then log in. If they don't already have an account, they can create an account here. Once logged in, it will take them to their activity on their studentaid.gov portal, and it will say that their student needs help, and they will accept that invitation. Then it will give them a pop-up that says that they are agreeing to share their information on this form. The FAFSA will then provide some onboarding items with some frequently asked questions, and will also state that the FAFSA form won't be processed until the parent completes their portion, provides consent, and signs the form. The parents will also have a 4-step onboarding similar to the student, and we recommend reviewing each of these steps. After onboarding, the parent will receive their identity information in accordance to their Federal Student Aid account or FSA ID. They'll want to review their permanent mailing address to make sure that that's correct and move forward. The parent, similar to the student, will be asked to provide consent and approval. And just as a reminder, the student will not be eligible for any aid if the parent declines this. This form is basically the same or similar to the student's consent form reviewed in the student section of this video. The FAFSA will ask about the parent's demographics and ask about the parent's current marital status. To review who is required to have an FSA ID, fill out the FAFSA, and provide consent and sign the FAFSA depends on the tax filing status of the parents. If the parent is single, we only need that parent to fill out the FAFSA. This is the same with widowed parents that have not since remarried. If the parents are unmarried and living together, they're going to have separate tax returns, so both the parents are required to fill out and sign the FAFSA. If they are married or remarried and they filed taxes jointly for 2022, then only one parent will need to log in, provide consent, and sign the form. Now, if they are married or remarried and filed their taxes separately, both parents are required to fill out and sign the FAFSA. If the parents are separated or divorced, whoever has provided the most financial support to the student in the past 12 months, we will use that parent's information. And if they have remarried, we will need the step-parent's information, and depending if they filed separately or jointly, will determine if they are required to log in and sign. In our example today, the parents are married and have filed a joint tax return. In the student section, we only invited one parent, since they are married. Normally, if the student doesn't insert the other parent's information earlier in their section, the parent completing the form will need to insert that information about the other parent. However, if the parents filed married jointly, we won't have to worry about inviting that other parent into the form. This would only be for separated tax completers. Just as a reminder here, if the parent doesn't have a social security number, you can check this box and instead insert the mailing address for that parent. Since our student has parents who filled jointly, this invite shouldn't appear. For the question about the parent's state of legal residence, since this is the same question reviewed in the student portion of the video, but for parents, please refer to that portion of the video. Now, if the parent creates their FSA ID and their identity has been processed, which can take 1 to 3 business days, then they should be able to automatically transfer their tax data over from the IRS, which means that their tax questions should be automatically answered. With the parent's finances, please refer to the student section of this video. I will be reviewing any additional questions the parents will be asked outside of what is seen in this student's finances. Here are the other financial questions that the parents will see that we would not see in a student section. First, we have the federal benefits received. Keep in mind, these answers do not affect the eligibility of aid for the student. On the FAFSA, it will ask about family size. This question is automatically populated from your tax return. So, if you didn't claim someone from your family on your taxes, you'll want to select yes here and add that additional person or persons. Make sure to read the instructions on who you can list as part of the family. You want to include any children who do not live at home but are attending college and are considered dependent still. Then the FAFSA will ask about the number of family members attending college. This does not include the parents, but we need to report the student completing the FAFSA and any additional family members. For our example, we just have Rhea, who will be attending college and is a student completing this FAFSA form. The only difference on these financial questions compared to the student is if the parent received any earned income tax credits or EITC. Now, on the parent assets, the parents have an additional question on their assets, which is the annual child support received. Now, this is going to depend on the situation of the parents. This asks, what is the total amount of child support that the parent received for the last complete calendar year? Once again, these other asset questions are reviewed in the student financial section of this walkthrough video. Finally, you will review all the information you have inserted so far on the FAFSA. Each section has its own drop-down and shows you both the questions and answers. If you need to edit anything, click on the question to quick link you to that portion of the FAFSA. It will also show the contributors that have been invited into your student's FAFSA form. Then, you are going to sign your FAFSA. We recommend reviewing this information before submitting. After doing so, you will check the signature box and click Sign. If the parents filed jointly, then after clicking Sign, your FAFSA will give you the Congratulations, your FAFSA is complete screen. If your parents filed separately, then both parents will need to sign before the Congratulations, your FAFSA is complete screen is shown. And congratulations, you are done with the FAFSA. Finally, let's delve into the FAFSA submission summary. Firstly, ensure you're logged into studentaid.gov. In your dashboard, under My Activity, locate your processed FAFSA form. Click on it to explore more details, but focus on the FAFSA submission summary. Keep in mind the FAFSA submission summary will not be available until the end of January of 2024. On your FAFSA submission summary, you can view a lot of important information. You'll be able to see when your FAFSA was received, which is when you submitted your FAFSA fully. When your FAFSA was processed by federal student aid, which means your FAFSA was sent to the colleges you listed in your form. We recommend that you review the 4 tabs of your summary. The first one is the Eligibility Overview. This is where you can review your estimated aid eligibility, such as Pell Grant estimates, student loan estimates, and it may state that you could be eligible for work study. This only shows estimates for federal aid. It does not review state aid, institutional aid, and other aid or scholarship opportunities, so don't be discouraged if you don't qualify for Pell. There are many other options outside of these estimates listed here. At the bottom, it will show your student aid index. This number can be a negative or a positive number. This number is sent to the colleges you listed, and those colleges will use that number to calculate the need that you have as a student. Then they will send you an offer letter with the different types of aid you qualify for. This offer letter will need to be reviewed by you, the student, and you will be able to accept or decline any types of aid for that college. Each college you list on your FAFSA will provide an offer letter, and we recommend shopping around to see what options you have as you decide on what college you plan to attend. The second tab is the FAFSA Form Answers. This is where you can review all the information you and your parents inserted on the FAFSA. This is also where you can make a correction if there is something you need to update or if there's an error on your form. The third tab is the School Information. This tab shows all the colleges you listed on your FAFSA with some additional statistics about each college that you can review. You can see the graduation rates, retention rates, the transfer rates, median debt upon completion, average annual costs, etc. Lastly, on the Next Steps tab, please keep an eye out for this red indicator, which can indicate if you have an error and it needs to be fixed. This tab is where you will receive any errors and what next steps you may have. It may even tell you whether or not you've been selected for verification. Another place it could indicate your FAFSA has been selected for verification is next to your Student Aid Index Number, or SAI. Verification means that the college needs to follow up with you on some information, and you'll need to provide additional documentation to confirm that information. The college will provide instructions on what is required, and you will be unable to qualify for aid until you complete your verification. Upon completion, the college will provide you with your offer letter. Being selected for verification does not mean you are in trouble. Most of the time, it is randomized. We recommend being proactive and reaching out to your college beforehand so you can start preparing the documents they will be requesting. Remember, for any inquiries or assistance, reach out to your college. They'll provide the most accurate guidance and support. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below or contact your college. Our information here is limited, so your college is the best resource for detailed guidance. Best of luck with your higher education and financial aid journey.